I've done lots of little videos now about how we got to where we are, broken things down and shown different documents. I've spoke about the research and things like that. But this video I want to do from my perspective, okay, how I got to where we are, right? So this is how I've put things together. I've tried to come out now from Wales outwards. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fetch it outwards, inwards, okay? Because I believe the evidence there is so strong. You need to see it now from a wider lens, right? So, 2013, an article showed up on Facebook. The World Health Organization were encouraging sexual stimulation lessons. So I clicked on it, I shared it, and people who said it was Jewish propaganda. They said it was Jewish propaganda because it was written by someone, I don't know who it was written by, but in the search bar, it had something Israel. So it was like, I don't know if it was an Israeli magazine or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But it was Spain campaigning against it. When I looked into it, I found an article, I think it was off the United Nations, speaking of the sex education. It was dated 2009. I can no longer find that, but I found a similar one, which is dated 2010. So I'll put that link, that'll be the first link now in this video. From there, I found the World Health Organization document. This clearly speaks about sex education from birth, okay? So it says in the paragraphs to begin with, it speaks a lot about protecting them from abuse. When he talks about abuse at home, but its interpretation of abuse is they have no interpretation of abuse, it's just a word as far as I can see. And then in the matrix part, it's got tables, and it quite clearly states age 0 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, and so on. 6 to 9, sorry, 9 to 12, and so on. From the word go, children are encouraged to sexually stimulate, think about what feels good and what doesn't feel good, consent, who can touch their body, who can't touch their body, differentiate between good and bad secrets. Now, I mean, come on, differentiate between a good and bad secret. How does a child know what a good and bad secret is? A child shouldn't be keeping secrets. If you've got a secret, you shouldn't tell a child. Children are supposed to drop you in there. So if you have got a secret, you shouldn't be telling a child, full stop. That is the best way you can safeguard your child there. Consent as well, and the stimulation, understand what feels good. Consent and the stimulation, the pleasure from sex, they are actually paedophile policies. And if you look into P.I.E, Paedophile Information Exchange, that's a political party from the 70s and 80s. And that was what they said. Children can consent and children get pleasure from sex. I will add a little clip of Tom O'Carroll, who was a big part of that. He still openly says, children can consent to sex. And he'll tell you how to compliment a 4-year-old by your knickers. Okay, that's how sick it is. But those are paedophile policies, and that is why I have to bring that to you now. It's also misleading children as well. So, like somebody who might be quite nasty to them, maybe because they're tired from work or a bit grumpy or whatever, these documents explain to a child how that person is a bad person. Whereas somebody who's kind to them all the time, or is nice to them, or treats them special, they are good people. When we know that's not necessarily the case, you could be, like I said, you could be grumpy and tired, but still be a nice person, still be a good person, and like, are abusers nasty? Are abusers aren't always violent, especially sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is usually grooming. Children feel special, they feel loved. They feel, because they're giving something, aren't they? So they do feel, they're complicit. They feel like they're consenting, right? They feel like they're consenting. These documents go a step further as well to like tell children where they can behave in this manner and where they can't behave in this manner. Now that's alarming in itself, because children who are being sexually abused usually do, they usually do something to another child or to another adult, and that's usually a sign that we should investigate further. Now, that's not to say children do not sexually stimulate. There is a such thing as childhood masturbation, but there's not enough education out there. There's not enough knowledge and there's not enough training. So that would be an area we really need to work on, okay? So that's something to think about there. So I've just, what I've covered here now is just literally not to age 4, okay, mentioned in this document. So that was it anyway. So from my perspective, I'm all children's rights. I'm sexual education, sexual safeguarding, safety online. I'm mental for stuff like that. And so that, and because I'm children's rights and I deal with the additional needs community a lot, and so I read a lot of policy, I understand the children's rights law here in Wales. So I always felt protected by that and the devolution of powers. So it kind of went to the back of my mind then for a little while. But then like a few years, I think it was like a year or so later, then I came across something else. It was an article. It was kindergarten in California. There was a book on the shelf there and it had bondage. They campaigned for an entire year to remove that book from the shelf, and that was it. And you know nothing more about that. But recently I've looked into it again and I found out now that after removing that book from the shelf, it took them a year to remove it. They've now legislated there in 2019. So that's important. There's legislation there now, okay? So this kind of stuff started happening there in 2014. In 2019, the legislation came into place. So then I heard about the 242 schools actually stimulating in England. I think that was about 2 years ago, and that's when I came across this then. This is the updated version, okay? So in here as well, it's really important you look at this because at the bottom it tells you, like the shaded writing, that's the original, what was written there, and then it's got the other style texts then they were put in later on. So that was adjustments made to it, okay? So and also it's a good idea to read the additional parts by themselves, so not in the table. If you just read those bits that were added later on, sometimes that jumps out to you as well, right? So that's another way to look at it. So anyway, so on to the sexual stimulation. I came across this document then, which is the UNESCO document, right? So this is like an updated version now, and this one isn't so sexual to begin with, but it's beefed up with rights, okay? Children's rights this, children's rights that, children should know their rights. So this actually starts at age 5. So what we've done now, over 8 years now of this moving all around the country, all around the world, sorry, some countries saying they don't want it, so they were threatened that they'd have their foreign aid pulled, okay, if they didn't accept it. Now, so that's another thing you need to bear in mind there. So after this bouncing around now, 8 years later, we come to this. You can imagine the campaigns that's gone on across the world that we haven't heard about, right? So this comes in and this starts at age 5, which looks a lot better than this to begin with. But again, with the research as well, there's some parts in here that were done on 87 studies. A global document done on 87 studies. The references in the back, most of them are reference to themselves, okay? So they are their own governing body, what they say goes. And there's not a lot in here that sits right. There's not a lot of evidence that supports it. So again, this starts at age 5 and immediately children are encouraged to exercise their rights, okay? So I want to talk to you about rights. I don't know if you know this, but children have got sexual rights and children have got sexual rights from birth, right? This is something you need to read. You need to read this, right? You need to read this. Children have the same sexual rights as adults, okay? From birth, all right? Children have the same sexual rights as adults from birth. The state have the power to administer medication to you, a child, okay, against your wishes because of your child's sexual rights. So we've had some receptionists, you know, the receptionist in the surgery, we all know about them, don't we? So we've had one of those say today now, it's against the law without the parents' permission. Well, actually in Wales, the law is the child has more of a say over the parent anyway in Wales. Do you know what I mean? That is the law here. And I was once proud of that. But I'm not anymore. I'm awfully worried about it, to be honest with you. So anyway, moving on. So yeah, in this document as well, it clearly says, right, this is a global 2030 sexuality agenda. So like they change it. So it's gone like from PSHE to RSE, CSE. Well, CSE to me is child sexual exploitation. And when I read these documents, that's how it feels. That is how it feels to me, and this is what everybody needs to read now. This particular document, if you want to print it off, right, it's quite big, but if you want to print it off, what I would do is I would actually cut the sections up, okay, so the ages, and I would read all the, like, so say the 5 to 8, I would read all that first as well. I would read the one that's for your child, yeah, but what I would also do is I would read them in thoroughly and then put them together and imagine them developmentally, okay, with their sexual rights and their children's rights over you and the education legislation starting from age 3, okay? Meaning, if you don't agree with any of it, you have not got a say. You have not got a say. Local authority can get involved, right? So like I said, now this document, it like kind of toned down the sexual behaviour starting off, right? And I mean, it started at age 5, which yes, maybe we could consider a bit more appropriate there then, right? But then I looked into those 242 schools in England, okay? And the sexual stimulation was part of the All About Me package. Now this was all over the country, from the south to the north. Now there are teachers that have seen my videos and say this is not happening in England. It is happening in England, right? So what's happening now is this started in 2018 in England, these little lessons. But now the legislation is coming into place in September, right? So this month now. So what do we find? We found the sexual stimulation thing. We found a screenshot of it. We found it on newspaper articles. We also found it on Mumsnet, right? Because obviously the mothers went looking for it straight away. I clicked on the links as well, right? This has been removed off there. It's been removed off there, okay? When you scroll right way down to the bottom of the page, you have a choice of countries. Do you know why you have a choice of countries? Because it came from the United Nations and the World Health Organization. So did your children's sexual rights. Okay? So what's all I got to do with Wales? Because we've got devolved powers, haven't we? Well, this legislation is coming to place, guys. This legislation is coming to place. We've got this crazy stuff happening up in Scotland where they're using bananas in Nutella. We've got this crazy stuff happening in England. There's a campaign in England called the Schoolgate campaign. There was campaigns outside schools in Birmingham and they accused the Muslim community of being homophobic. Anyone who joined in was homophobic. This is not about being homophobic. This is about safeguarding children. So again, going back to the point of how this is in Wales, right? How this will affect us in Wales. Well, if you really still want to take the risk with our legislation and your child's rights over yours and your child's sexual rights after you've read these documents, right, and you still are not listening, how's about you have a look at this? The Welsh Draft, okay? The Welsh Draft, the curriculum, which is very, very vague. But on page 4, it tells you the primary schools don't have to teach this lesson unless they choose to, okay? If they choose to, refer to UNESCO. So page 4, all right, of the 2019 draft. Refer to UNESCO, so it will start from age 5, right? Remember now, previously it started from birth. That's how quick these documents can change. So if that head teacher decides now to have these lessons in that school, you haven't got a say in it. Because you've already allowed that legislation to come in force. That legislation that gives your children these sexual rights. Sexual rights, children's rights, no parental rights. These children can't be properly safeguarded, right? Now, yeah, there is abuse in families, intrafamilial abuse, right? And that is another thing we need to go into. But even those children now, they're suffering at home, they've got no outlets. What about the children that's in care? What about the children that's got nobody to look out for them? This is closing doors on their face, right? So you think that this is not an issue. Well, look, there's the Safe Schools Alliance in England that's writing letters because ASDA published a home education sex pack, which came from the diversity role models. Who's delivering these lessons in England, okay? The diversity role models are writing it. They've got nothing to do with child development. Read the letter from the Safe Schools Alliance, right? Back to Wales. So what we did, we tried to get hold of Kirsty Williams. We asked her a series of questions. She basically came back with a load of nonsense, right? We've asked her qualifications. She hasn't got them. I will put the letter is on my profile. I don't think I'll put that on again. Do I need to put that on again? I might add it to this video. So the response we had from her she pretty much said that it was, which didn't even reply, somebody else did. She said she fished it out to other people. Well, we know who those other people are. That contradicted what the Freedom of Information request said, because they directed us to Hub when the draft actually directed us to UNESCO, right? What was the other one? Then we found a letter then of Lynne Neagle. Lynne Neagle's constituents asked her about this law. She denied all knowledge of it, right? She denied all knowledge of it. She blocked a few of them. I found a letter of Kirsty Williams to Lynne Neagle, who is the Children and Young People's Education Committee. She's the chair of that. Yes, she's the chair of that. The chair of the Children's and Young People's Education Committee, right? The first question she asked Kirsty Williams was, there is no opt-out in this legislation for RSE. Kirsty sent back a 7 to 10 page response all about RVE, right? And this lady also mentioned it will be in breach of so many rights of the Human Rights Act for parents. Well, the thing is, the children's rights go above the parents' rights, okay? The children's rights will go above the parents' rights. It will override the parents' rights. So you need to look at this and you need to understand it. Kirsty Williams replied on page 5, at the top of page 5, a paragraph but that big. She didn't answer the question. She did not answer the question. So you need to read this stuff. You need to read this stuff and you need to understand how serious this law is, right? If you think legislation for for sex education in a 3-year-old child, whether it's in now or not, right, there is something seriously wrong with you, all right? Every single thing on these leaflets you need to Google because it's all there. Everything in here is what's in England and what's in Scotland, right? None of it is a lie. Even the stats on the back of what's in England and what's in Scotland, none of it is a lie, all right? So you need to look at this stuff now, guys. If all this stuff is happening all around the world, right, and this legislation's there for age 3, there is nothing stopping them fetching this year, right? The second that law comes here, there is nothing stopping them fetching it the following day. Are you willing to take that risk? That is entirely up to you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put every single link again in this post, right? That is it from my perspective now. I've done it in a nutshell. I've broken it down. I've done each document. I've tried my best. I've even shown you the Freedom of Information request, right? You need to start reading it now. This is serious, right? This is serious. We've got an opportunity to stop it in Wales. Right, we've got an election next year, right? We can get rid of them. We need to stop voting on colours now. This is a child protection issue, guys. This is a child protection issue. The schools and social services are in charge of this issue and they're not adequately trained for it. Nobody is saying no sex education. We are saying no legislation. Our children don't need sexual rights. Okay, you need to read these documents. Please read them. I have broken bits down for you. I've put screenshots. The screenshots are not good enough. I've put links. People are coming back saying that's not on that link. We need to scroll down a little bit further. You don't like the newspaper articles. Well, you need to click on the blue words because they'll take you to screenshots of other websites because they've removed this stuff offline. Right? Come on. This is serious. You need to look at it. You need to wake up. This is the most serious video I'll ever do, and yes, I'm in my dressing gown, right? Because I don't like doing this stuff. I need to be comfortable. So come on, guys. I can't stress to you how important this is. We've got a chance to stop this. The future of sex education. Is this going to be the future of sex education? No. It cannot be the future of sex education. We need to stop it here. And if we stop it here, England will know how to stop it. And if England can stop it, then Scotland can stop it. Then Ireland can stop it. Because no in Ireland, now when I said they're using diversity role models in England, in Ireland they're using support, educate and celebrate. Have a look who the ambassador for educate and celebrate is, guys. Peter Tatchell. He thinks sex with 9-year-old boys can be harmless. And he's promoting this education around schools. Come on. Come on now. We've got a chance here to stop this. We've got a chance. Right? Stop looking for one document and start reading all of them. Right? You need to get on board with this now, guys. Whether you like me or not, or whether you think I'm patronising or not. You lot are attacking me, mind. I'm just trying to inform you. This is the truth. This is the truth. And it's all here for you. Right? You need to get on board, guys. Even if you can't physically, you need to do what you can, right? This is the truth. You've got a duty of care to the children of this country. Everyone has. Now wake up. Wake up. Read it. Read it. Don't slag me off on other posts. Prove me wrong in person, because the education minister can't. I'm here fighting for the children. I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to fight with anyone. Right? I just want the kids to be looked after. And this is not looking after the kids. Please, 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 please read everything. And please just get on board. Just get on board, because the kids need us. It's as simple as that.